A scholar says some points on the obligatory agreements of Egypt and Sudan on GERD are unacceptable. And the Director General is said incapable to lead WHO for the second term. Hello and welcome to Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Shifarao Lako, and do stay with us. Now, Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde underscores that the forthcoming national dialogue is significant to reach consensus on key national issues. I have signed the proclamation establishing the Ethiopian National Dialogue Commission pursuant to the constitution of the country. I believe in the significance of a genuine and inclusive dialogue. I have worked on such issue and witnessed its outcomes, the president underlined. National dialogue avoids imposition of thoughts, combative attitudes and security threats to the people and its nation at large. It cultivates culture of dialogue, listening and mutual respect. National dialogue is very essential to countries undergoing post-conflict circumstances like Ethiopia, the president added. The president further says Ethiopians need to nominate eligible women as candidates of commissioners of the national dialogue. She also encouraged women to be elected and actively participate in the national dialogue process. Political science and international relations scholar at the Addis Ababa University and Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam negotiating team member Dr. Jacob Arsano says the stance of Egypt and Sudan on some points of the binding agreements on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam are unacceptable. Talking to ETV today, Jacob explained the multiple benefits of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam to Sudan and Egypt. Kasaon Chane reports.
Indicating Ethiopia has repeatedly stressed that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam will not harm any of the European countries, Jacob Arsano pointed out that the dam didn't bring any negative impact on any of the downstream countries, even after the completion of the first and second filling. Cognizant of this fact, Jacob blames some of the binding agreements of Sudan and Egypt with regard to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
Some of the issues they raise to be binding is really funny. For example, Egypt and Sudan want that Ethiopia should allow them to administer the dam together, and that is not something Ethiopia can accept and should accept, and that is not that they can get it, because the dam belongs to Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is the owner of the dam. Ethiopia is the constructor of the dam. The Ethiopian people are owners of the dam. So Egypt and Sudan will have no place to administer the dam. Ethiopia, while administering the dam, can of course supply information if there are any changes in the administration, so that Egypt and Sudan also get prepared to adjust some of the things, which may be required. Another thing is that they want that the dam should be filled in much longer time, like 12 to 20 years, while Ethiopia wants to fill the dam and to produce electricity. There is a lot of investment on Ethiopia's part.
The design of the dam is vigilantly studied from the very beginning. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam provides ample protection against devastating floods and effects of water shortage during drought and dry periods for Sudan. Similarly, Egypt also benefits from water conservation at the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and instead of wastage at billions of cubic meters of water to evaporation and in downstream floodplains. The reason why Jacob said it could benefit the downstream countries after the successful completion of the dam as well.
Egypt and Sudan will definitely benefit from this dam because Ethiopia has planned to fill the dam during the rainy season when water is abundant. So in any case, the construction and filling the dam and the utilization of the dam water in Ethiopia for electricity is useful for Ethiopia and not at all harmful for Sudan and Egypt. In fact, it should help, or it should really support cooperation between the three countries. And it is up to Sudan and Egypt to cooperate with Ethiopia.
According to him, African Union-led negotiation is not stopped, though Egypt and Sudan are very slow to hold in that regard.
Negotiation agenda is on the table, before the Africa Union chairmanship. So Africa Union is facilitating the dialogue between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt. And it is Egypt and Sudan, they are really very slow and they are sluggish. They know that the final end of the negotiation will really support the construction, filling, and utilization of Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
He also underscored that it's significant to stand in unison as Ethiopian and assured a speedy completion of the construction of the dam up to its final stage to respond to the economic development endeavors of the nation.
The construction of the dam has to continue, and the construction of the dam is people's project, and this dam is going to be really significant in the economic life of Ethiopia. This dam is really a dam for economic purpose for Ethiopia, which is very significant. It's a flagship project, and all of us have been supporting it. Ethiopians abroad, Ethiopians in the country, Ethiopians coming from all walks of life, young, old, farmers, business people, government workers, private workers, people working in non-governmental organizations, all have been supporting it, and this is worth it, and it is being delivered, it is coming, and this has been realized.
Many scholars also agree the development of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam plays an important role in meeting an increasing renewable energy generation share towards sustainable development Goal 7 and better water management of Goal 6 of the SDGs, as well as meeting many targets of Africa's Agenda 2063.
Now, Foreign Affairs State Minister Ambassador Redwan Hussein has called on the international community to hold TPLF accountable for obstructing humanitarian support by harassing adjacent regions. Ambassador Redwan had a discussion today on humanitarian support in Ethiopia with the regional director of the World Food Programme, Michael John Denford. On the occasion, Ambassador Redwan reiterated the federal government's commitment to peace in Ethiopia through its decisions to withhold the advance of its troops into the Tigray region. Despite this, the state minister said the TPLF continued its aggression against adjacent regions, particularly Abala in the Afar region, demonstrating its intransigence to escalate the conflict. Ambassador Redwan said the government has reaffirmed its commitment to the aid flow into the Afar region by reducing the number of checkpoints, increasing the amount of cash that humanitarian agencies bring to the region, and allowing daily humanitarian flights to Tigray. He said the government initiatives for peace and commitment to unobstructed flow of humanitarian aid into the Tigray region have failed to be reciprocated by the TPLF and recognized by the international community. The TPLF's unceasing harassment of neighboring regions under unwarranted reasons and the pretext of the shortage of fuel and insecurity to truck drivers, coupled with the hijacked humanitarian trucks, have continued to hamper the humanitarian operation in the region, he said. In this regard, as long as the harassment of the Amhara and Afar regions by the TPLF continues, the government of Ethiopia will take measures deemed necessary to protect the well-being of innocent civilians. John Denford, on his part, praised the government's approach to peace, noting that the TPLF's attacks on adjacent regions, particularly in Abala, were challenging the humanitarian operation. He said that WFP has plans to provide 700 tons of food aid in Ethiopia, including affected people in the Amhara and Afar regions. The regional director also revealed the organization's plan to support people affected by the current drought in East Africa, including Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia. Upon concluding the meeting, Ambassador Redwan underlined that the international community should hold the TPLF accountable for obstructing aid into the Tigray region, disregarding peace efforts and harassing people in adjacent areas. Welcome back. Now moving on, scholars say WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom has repeatedly violated the constitution of the World Health Organization in his tenure as Director General of the organization. His unethical and reckless conduct has made a mockery of the flagship UN institution, the scholar added. The Director General has continued disseminating entirely false information about the situation in the country by siding with the terrorist group. Haptamo Shagri has more on that.
The existing and widely disseminated evidence of World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom has been violating the rules of the World Health Organization in various ways. The preamble of the WHO Constitution stated that the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being without distinction of race, religion, and political belief, economic or social condition. However, in several occasions, the Director General has spoken up about the current conflict in Ethiopia, but only to highlight the harm experienced by the Tigrayan people, with whom he identifies ethnically. While highlighted the lack of medicine in hospital in Tigray, he has said nothing about looting of health facilities and the destruction of hospitals and 1,706 health posts in Amhara region and 78% health centers in Afar region.
The removing of all kinds of medical equipment, schools and stuff, and moving it to Tigray. And then the stuff they couldn't move, they literally burned it. They even killed cattle, livestock. This is so outrageous. This is so criminal. And this is the TPLF, where Tedros was the third highest ranking official in that organization.
Lahun added to have attended his current office as an Ethiopian, but to turn a blind eye to the suffering of Ethiopians simply because they do not belong to his ethnic group is an unspeakable moral offense. Dr. Tedros spoke up about the lack of medicine and food in Tigray, knowing full well that the challenges delaying some humanitarian provisions was due to the TPLF shelling of access routes from Afar and Amhara to Tigray. A cursory look at his official Twitter account reveals the extent to which he would go to highlight the harm and destruction in Tigray region while completely ignoring the destruction in the Afar and Amhara regions. He has abused his position as head of WHO to advance a political agenda. He also has chosen to use his position to uphold the banner of his former political party and to abandon his professional and human responsibilities, the scholar said. On the other hand, due to his wrong leadership, the World Health Organization response to the COVID-19 pandemic, he has spoken against the injustice of the rich nation reserving the COVID-19 vaccines for their own people, Alan Whiteside said.
The World Health has handled this pandemic appallingly so far. They were very slow to identify it as a problem. We saw the first cases at the end of December, beginning of January, but Tedros and the WHO didn't really start taking it seriously until the 23rd of January, when they declared it a public health emergency of international concern, and it wasn't until the 11th of March that they declared it as a pandemic. So their response has been extremely slow.
Chapter 7's Article 37 of the WHO Constitution states, in the performance of their duties, the Director General and the staff shall refrain from any action which might reflect on their position as international officers, he added.
These organizations, like the International Atomic Energy, the World Health Organization, the Food Agriculture Organization, these are technical, supposed to be technical components of the United Nations. And they should have somebody who is a scientist, just like Professor Allen said, a physician, and highly competent, accomplished scientist to lead the WHO that has a stature, a world stature. So I'm hoping that these organizations, instead of being converting into a political football, they would actually be a technical organization to provide the badly needed service, particularly to developing countries.
Dr. Tedros' conduct and behavior stands in direct violation to the very text and spirit this imminent WHO rule as stated in its preamble. As part of this move, the government of Ethiopia has requested WHO member state has filed a formal investigation request to the World Health Organization Executive Board over Dr. Tedros' conduct.
Now, Ethiopia, the mother of Pan-Africanism, had been pressurized by the Western imperialistic countries to push away the African Union summit. Against all odds, and thanks to the African member states' wise decision, Addis Ababa is once again to host the summit in the coming days. And hosting AU summit can bring forth a social, political and economic impact to the country. Tigist Sarnesa has more on that.
Ethiopia, the birthplace of Black nations' defiance and independence, has been hosting the African Union Summit ever since the Union came to existence. Since Ethiopia is one of the founding members of the Union and the only African country that was never been colonized, Ethiopia's being the seat of the African nation is indeed inevitable.
Historically, there are attempts by external or colonial powers or imperialism that the symbolic meaning of Ethiopia is highly attached with Pan-Africanism. Historically, there are some points that we cannot smash down why Ethiopia becomes the center of Pan-Africanism or the center of the AU, headquartered here.
The glorious past that Ethiopia has had historically made Westerners think of Ethiopia as a perplex country that redefined Black nations' independence. Because of this, Western powers tried their level best in creating media campaign against the good image of Ethiopia, and they started interfering in domestic affairs of the country, but all these were defeated by Ethiopians residing in the Western countries. The hashtag No More movement also initiated the Black Nations movement against imperialists, especially in Mali and across the African countries as well.
Whenever Ethiopia is struggling with imperialism, well, neo-colonial forces, the Western camp well understood that it is very much difficult and it takes to the wrong way. The hashtag No More movement showed this. When we, just as the diaspora community of Ethiopia residing in the US, have started the hashtag No More movement all over the world, including in Africa. For example, in Mali, there are black protests rising against colonial legacies, just like against the French and the like. It is still going on. Our African brothers from different areas, just like from Uganda, South Africa, joining the campaign because they know in history, they have a good memory. Regardless of this, regardless of what Ethiopia has been economically whatsoever, we might be poor, but nobody cannot snatch that glorious past.
It was emphasized during a discussion on a TV's roundtable that as a responsible citizen or be it media house has to solely focus on winning the media war against Ethiopia by imperialists, an agenda needed to be set.
Agenda setting is a very distinguished field of research that found itself as the intersection of political process and communication research. So our media, how can you set agenda? Every time we pile up agenda after an agenda. Sometimes these issues might be nonsense, untimely. So we have problems of prioritizing issues. Agenda setting is a political process. So we need to just, what is our timely and just pressing agenda for Ethiopia this time? We don't have any agenda than curbing this aggression of the TPLF invading course and saving Ethiopia from total disintegration.
All economic advantages, and because of the relentless efforts from Ethiopians across the globe and the rebirth of Pan-Africanism, the summit will take place in the capital Addis Ababa.
Well, when you host a global or continental event of this magnitude in your country, you gain a lot of economic advantage because it's about hotels, it's about conference tourism, it's also about conference halls. And so the conference industry was for quite some time booming in Addis Ababa. And that means attracting FDI by investors because now that there's security, now that there's peace, and Ethiopia being the cradle of the anti-colonialist and Pan-Africanist struggle, that means there's a symbolic significance to it as well. And so the conference was booming for quite some time. If you stripe that away from Addis Ababa, then that means pulling the plug out of the government. And that means the government is going to crumble in a short period of time. So that was the calculus.
The 40th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of Ministerial Session and the 35th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the AU Heads of States and Government will take place from the 2nd to 6th February 2022.
The Ministry of Health has welcomed a donation of 2.2 million doses of Sinopharm vaccines from the Chinese government. While signing the Memorandum of Understanding, Ethiopian Health Minister Dr. Liat Adessa hailed China's continued support in the fight against the coronavirus. The Chinese ambassador to Ethiopia on his part said this donation was a demonstration of China's commitment to strengthening ties. China has donated over 2 billion doses of vaccines to more than 120 countries around the globe.
I would like to express our sincere appreciation for the government of China for this 5th cycle of donation of COVID-19 vaccines. This today's donation is 2.2 million doses of Sinopharm vaccine, which makes the total donation so far from the government of China up to 7.5 million doses of Sinopharm vaccines, helping to access the vaccines to our communities and protect from COVID pandemic and help us in the mitigation of this pandemic.
China and Ethiopia are good brothers and sisters. We always support each other. China cherish and pay great attention to the friendship between Ethiopia and we will continue to support Ethiopia to fight against COVID-19. And in 2022, we will make more vaccines to deliver here.
Now in business, Ambassador Teshome Toga has participated in a live streaming event and 11,000 bags of Ethiopian coffee were sold in just 5 seconds. Ambassador Teshome tweeted that more than 11,000 bags of Ethiopian coffee in stock were sold in 5 seconds in Shanghai in a live streaming online event via Tmall global platform. According to China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, China's import of coffee increased by 196% from January to November 2021. In coming years, China will import more African agricultural products.